Although the focus of this channel is mostly Mediterranean, Near Eastern, and to a degree North American myths and folklore, occasionally in the manifold world of the internet, I, like many of you, encounter incredible tidbits from disparate cultures that I necessarily don't know as much about, and some of these legends are just so interesting and cool that, well, having the time, I just feel the need to retell them to you. And here we are at the CM Kozeman channel with this new experimental short audio format video dedicated to Nakili's quest of the Miskito underworld. Before we begin, I would like to remind you once again, if you're a newcomer, to consider subscribing to this channel, clicking the goddamn bell icon, and maybe leaving a comment to drive the algorithm. If you really like this channel, you can even consider donating to me on Patreon and maybe buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com, or maybe even getting some of the official CM Kozeman merchandise. In Patreon, even $1 a month makes a huge difference for me, and actually it makes a huge difference for you too. What am I talking about? You get to see a world of paintings, new bizarre creature art and stuff that nobody else gets to see anywhere, so it's a win-win kind of situation. Okay, so here we go with Nakili's quest to the underworld in pursuit of his dead bride. But before starting, let's provide a little context. This is a legend of the Miskito people, and I was prompted to research it some while ago by a very close dear online friend who had this heritage. So it's an interesting culture. The Miskito people are a Mesoamerican people living mostly in Nicaragua and Honduras, and there's a world of interesting stuff about their culture that I could tell about, but you're better off checking on your own. Suffice it to say, now we will be studying this one obscure legend I found in the Native Languages of the Americas website, an old-style HTML website which was launched in 1998. And the internet is just full of incredible sources like this. They're not in Wikipedia, they're not in YouTube, they're not in TikTok, they're not in Instagram, but they're just in these little HTML websites that people make with their hands and upload with an FTP server, and you have to type a specific domain to go there and read all this stuff. Basically, it's just wonderful. Could you believe it that once upon a time, in what seems like a legend now, the entire internet used to be like this? You had your own personal website and you uploaded your own things there, whether it was images or research or text or stories. You had to format the text and the background and the images, and you were in control of everything. You had these pages dedicated to your favorite links and links of your friends and maybe even your email address and stuff like that. That was how the internet used to be, and in fact, if you visit my website, cmkozeman.com, you can still see my main web presence designed in the same way. But let's not get so distracted again, and let's now go back to the Miskito legend of Nakili and his dead bride. So Nakili really loved this girl, and something happened. I don't know, maybe she was poisoned or there was an accident, we don't know. But the girl, very beautiful, this moon-eyed girl died, okay? And Nakili was really sad, so he wanted to go back to the underworld with her. And he kept visiting her grave, maybe you're despondent, you would do anything. And one day, lo and behold, he actually found her soul by the grave. Now the soul of the girl looked just like the girl herself, except that she was only 2 feet high. So like a little person, just standing there saying, "Hello peoples." So, Nakili was like, wow, it's like an alien abduction experience. You're back from the dead. Are you dead? Are you alive? What's going on? So the girl actually said, I'm actually kind of dead, but I sometimes hang around this grave. just for lulls. But the man was adamant, I have to be with you, I have to come with you to the afterlife, wherever you go. So she said, okay, I guess there's a place I could guide you. And together they set out to an Odyssey to the afterlife, to the Miskito afterlife. So this was actually a easy undertaking. There just happened to be this narrow, thin footpath near the grave that only the 2-foot tall little petite girl could access. So off they went into the narrow footpath, and they kept walking, and they kept walking, and they kept walking, probably in some like maquis-like environment, surrounded by bush and surrounded by plants. So it's like a tunnel in the greenery. And if you've ever explored a jungle in any part of the world, sometimes forests or scrubland really gets this weird state. You're in you feel like you're in a green tunnel, and that's what happened to this guy and his newlywed bride. Okay, and off they went into the narrow footpath, and they kept walking and walking and walking until they arrived at this place inhabited by bad birds. There was this this wild place full of predatory birds. I'm thinking about maybe like these monkey-eating eagles or these giant staring birds. I don't know. Legend is kind of moot on the details, but it was full of these bad birds, and they could snatch the little soul girl at any second. But fortunately, the guy, being alive and thus normal-sized, warded them off, and the birds did not attack the 2-foot tall, surely dead girl. And on they kept going. Then they came at another place where there were 2 pines, but there was like a very narrow gap between them. A very narrow gap. And only the tiny petite girl could squeeze through this gap. And the man, in order to access the afterlife, just happened to walk around the trees. So now in the place with the bad birds and the place with the 2 trees, we kind of see this almost like cartoonish effect where it's a place where only the big guy can pass, and then they come to a place where only the little girl can pass. So already it's a kind of filtration effect going on. Now at this junction, obviously the 2 trees act as a kind of passage or a gateway to the afterlife. Their whole arrangement suggests that. And throughout our journey in this Miskito afterlife adventure, I will draw parallels between certain details in the story to certain details I know from other world mythologies. Certainly I'm not the first person to do that, but it's just interesting to consider these connections, and there's one right here. For example, in certain parts of Turkey, tombstones are sometimes marked with a symbol of 2 trees or 2 trees surrounding a flower or a similar arrangement. Now obviously there are no connections between rural Anatolia and, let's say, Nicaragua, but it's just interesting to notice how certain symbols and certain patterns emerge over and over as people tell each other stories and legends. I mean, there have been many other works considering these parallelisms. The most famous is a big multi-volume book called The Golden Bough. That's the Golden Bough. Well, go give it a read. It's a very dense and rich work, and it draws many parallels between many things which perhaps don't actually have parallels, but anyways, it's a master resource to consult if you're interested in legends and folk tales and death myths and such things. Anyways, back to our couple, Nakili and his dead shorty bride. The bride squeezes through the trees and Nakili just goes around them because who the fuck cares? And of course, he makes it through. He is now in the afterlife following his 2-foot tall dead bride. And they come to a place where there's like this small cliff. It's like a kind of like 2-meter or 6-foot wide cliff, at the bottom of which there's boiling water. And then there's a thin bridge, so thin as to be as thin as a string, perhaps. And you have to walk across this bridge to safely reach the next level of the Miskito afterlife. And Obviously, you have to be a good person to cross the bridge, and if you're bad, you will fall down and you will boil and you will die. Well, you're already dead, but you will lose the death game, that's to say. And the little bride, being a good girl, just walks across the bridge, ping, 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 and makes it through. Nakili, in another fit of cartoon logic, just jumps across the chasm, which is a chasm only if you're a 2-foot tall dead spirit, and for normal people it's just a big leap, maybe moderately dangerous, but he jumps and he makes it through. And once again, like the gateway of the trees, we see a kind of gateway that only the dead in their special form are maybe meant to cross. Also, like the symbol of the two trees, in fact more prevalent is the similarity between this bridge over a boiling pit and a similar bridge in Muslim folk tradition. So in Muslim tradition, when you go to the afterlife, you are meant to cross the bridge. You're meant to cross a bridge named the Sirat Bridge. On the back of animals you have sacrificed during one particular holiday where everybody sacrifices sheep or cows or camels and everybody gets to eat meat. So that is the motive, and it's like almost a beat by beat repetition, only in the Miskito myth it is smaller. But what an interesting parallelism. It's almost like the human mind invents stories of bridges and tribulations and almost like a trial after they pass. Just dying isn't enough. You have to be dead as a good person to make your way across a certain hazard. And this is how Nakili and his bride get through the boiling water. By the way, if you notice any parallels between any of these motifs and any other culture, please let us know in the comments so we get the discussion going too. And on with the quest in the afterlife. After crossing the little cliff of boiling water, Nakili and his lover come across a big river. Now, this is something nobody can jump across, no matter how short or big you are. But fortunately, from the distance, approaches a vessel. It's a canoe paddled by 4 toads. Yes, 4 goddamn toads come along, and in the water, Nakili and his bride watch a great amount of small fish. Fish like sardines that the Miskito people call blim or bilam. And the girl mistakes these for sharks because, remember, this is an ongoing theme in this afterlife escapade. She's small and she's petite, so to her, a sardine is like a big shark. And anyways, the frogs are good frogs, they're good Samaritans, they come take them along, and off they go rowing across, finally to paradise. Across the water, they see something like a fertile, bright island approach, and this is the afterlife. And only the souls of people who lead virtuous lives are allowed to disembark there. If you led an unvirtuous life, you are dropped in the water, and the sardines or the small fish or whatever they are, well, they just eat you up like little sharks or piranhas or both. Anyways, off they reach into paradise. Here they are welcomed by a goddess figure named Mas'ala. I might be butchering the pronunciation, but it is written Masalla. Mas'ala, a robust woman with many breasts, to whom the inhabitants arrive once in a while to suckle like babies. So there's no problem getting sustenance in paradise. You just go to Mama Goddess and you suckle up like Mother Nature intended you to. Now once again we have to ring the ding 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 parallelism bell here, because the figure of Mazala, the giant goddess with numerous breasts, looks almost exactly like this one goddess that people used to worship in Asia Minor and other parts of the ancient world. In Ephesus, this goddess is known as Demeter or Artemis, and she's a big 3 meter, that's like 9 feet tall woman with thousands of pendulous breasts-like things hanging from her chest. Archaeologists aren't sure if these are actual breasts, or perhaps there's a hypothesis that suggests these were actually bull's testicles hung up onto a woman's body for a fertility rite, don't ask how. But this figure, whether these are breasts or something else, this figure really resembles Mas'Allah in the Miskito paradise, and it's just one of the few very weird similarities linking this myth to the old world. Once again, I'm not suggesting anything supernatural, nor am I suggesting that the Miskito people have hitherto unknown links to Asia Minor. Instead, I'm just merely pointing it out. Maybe when people come up with these spellbinding stories of the afterlife, the mind, being a squiggly little evolutionary machine, always retorts to similar motifs. And obviously, I mean, like, look, everybody, especially in the pre-agricultural or the pre-industrial world, hunger is a real risk. And when you're in your mother's arms, you're suckling on her breast, that's the only time in your life you get free food. After that, everybody had to work all the time or you just died. So I can see how suckling is a heavenly mode of sustenance, milky goodness in the Miskito paradise, courtesy of Mas'Allah. So anyways, Nakili and his bride hang out in paradise for a while and everything is good. Occasionally though, Mas'Allah has these angry mama moments where she's like, you're a living person, you're really not supposed to be here, I'm gonna have to throw you back to earth one of these days, you just behave, you just stay on my good side, Nakili, she says. But he begs her to stay because I love my bride so much, she's incredible, I could not think about a separate life from her. So Mas'Allah says, okay, I'll let you stay, just be good, just be a good boy, okay? And anyways, months and maybe years pass, who can tell in this place beyond time. In this country, nobody had to work, the legend goes. There was abundant food and rich drinks and diversion. But after staying there a long time, once again, we don't know if it was months or weeks or eons, Nakili felt the desire to return to Earth, to see other members of his family again, and to see his people again, and maybe, I don't know, there were things about the world he missed. So Mas'Allah says, okay, I give you permission to leave, but you're not gonna be able to come back to the afterlife, to my island, until after you really die for real now, and that's the only time you'll be able to see your bride again in heaven. And he reluctantly agrees. So Mas'Allah sits this guy on a great stalk of bamboo and whoosh, throws it like a spear into the river. And suddenly Nakili crashes into an ocean by some great waves. And then a gigantic wave throws him ashore, leaving him right in front of his own small house, back where he started. And that's Nakili's Odyssey in the Miskito afterlife. What do you think, everybody? I mean, let's give a second look at this whole myth and its motifs. It's a very extraordinary story after you're used to the myths and legends of the old world. In the old world, the myths are a bit more stern, and there's always a big punchline, and it's things like Noah's flood or Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt, There's always a moral of the story. In this story, there is a moral, and the moral obviously is that the dead and the living will only be united when everybody's dead, basically. But there are also many little side quests and little side episodes and even certain humorous moments. And stuff like this I can only discern in very old world myths, maybe the quest of Odysseus or something like that, but it was still a fascinating story to read. There are many legends of the Miskito people. Not all of them have been recorded. If you're interested in reading this particular legend, I'm leaving the link in the description. I'm also leaving a link to a book about another Miskito story. This one is about This one is almost like a anti-capitalist warning story. But yeah, go check out the links. And while you're checking out the links, also maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or on my other platforms. After all, just look, man, okay? I'm going out of my way, working a day job, working as an artist. I'm a full-time painter, and doing a few other things, hustling for an honest buck. And in my spare time, I'm making these podcasts. I'm giving it my soul. I want it to be entertaining. I don't want to record anything I wouldn't personally listen to. So if you enjoyed this, please consider supporting me by putting basically your money where your mouth is. Anyways, thanks once again for your time, and I love you all. I hope you enjoyed the Miskito journey to the afterlife. Stay in the realm of the living, everybody. Whether we like it or not, we're all gonna find out what awaits us in the afterlife. I hope I'm awaited by some petite shorties and supernatural islands and stuff like that. But stay in the realm of the living. This was CM Kozeman. Goodbye.